and welcome to episode 67 of This Week in Germany. We'll be bringing the world to Germany and Germany to the world with news for the week beginning the 13th of April 2015. My name's Daniel.
And I'm Rob. Each week we feature stories from the news, society, and culture in the English language. If you want to find out more, including ways to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Spreaker, SoundCloud, and Spotify, head over to our website, thisweekingermany.de.
In this episode, Thursday saw the 70th anniversary of the death of Georg Elser, the man who was 13 minutes away from successfully killing Adolf Hitler and changing the course of history. And this week, a film about him was released in German cinemas. We profile the life of the man and his assassination attempt.
In Destination Germany, we travel to the nation's capital and look at a fun place to spend some sunny days and warm evenings.
Our resident psychologist Sven Rudloff joins us to explain the background of Germany's industry-dominating discount supermarkets, Aldi and Lidl.
All that, plus the rest of the week's news in brief, coming up.
Georg Elser is on his knees in the Bürgerbräu-Keller, slowly placing dynamite into the hole he has scratched out inside a column. The column supports the roof and is directly located behind the podium where Hitler will be speaking. He's sweating. His hands are scratched, and after he painfully takes the weight off his knees, he turns to the clock mechanism. He sets it. He tests it. It works. Elser has prepared for weeks, secretly carving out the brickwork at night, unseen, and building the mechanism on his own. He wants to stop a dictator from dragging his country into a devastating world war. He slides the wooden panel back into place over the hole. After taking one last look at the swastika-decorated hall, he turns and leaves.
And for Elser was important, he wanted not to kill only Hitler, but all the other highest criminals of the Nazi Party, Göring, Goebbels, and Himmler. So these were the people who were there at the evening of November 8, 1939.
This week I spoke to Professor Johannes Tuchel, the director of the German Resistance Memorial Center, a museum which remembers those Germans who stood up to the Nazis.
Unfortunately, Hitler left the building. There was fog, he cannot use his airplane, so he has to go by train back to Berlin. So he left the building earlier, 13 minutes earlier. And he left the assembly room unexpectedly, only minutes before the explosion, and thus evaded the assassination attempt.
Just 13 minutes. Just think about it, just 13 minutes. If that bomb hit its target, it could have changed history.
Of course, we can't say for sure what would have happened. It's impossible to speculate. But it's tempting to believe that wiping out the entire Nazi high command would have halted their takeover of Europe.
And remember, that was just one man. By himself. Where did he come up with this plan?
Well, to tell that story, we have to go back to the picturesque town of Königsbronn in Württemberg. This is where Georg Elser grew up. This is where he worked as a carpenter. It seems like an unlikely place to begin. While other assassinations and coup attempts were plotted in cities by networks of conspirators. But it was in Königsbronn that, as war loomed on the horizon, Georg Elser planned and prepared his assassination of Adolf Hitler.
Look at that time. Germany tried to throw away the Old Versailles Treaty. In early 1938, the Germans invaded Austria. In the harvest of 1938, they invaded parts of Czechoslovakia, the so-called Sudetenland. And at that time, approximately in October 1938, said Elser, okay, Hitler is a modern tyranny and Hitler is preparing a war, and I'll try to avoid this war by an assassination attempt against Hitler.
How did he know where and when he could try this assassination?
Well, he knows that there's going to be a Nazi speech every year in the same place, in a Munich beer hall.
The so-called Bürgerbräukeller. Here they made the beer hall putsch in 1923.
Yeah, so there's going to be a lot of big-name Nazis there, eating and drinking and giving their speeches. It's an ideal place to carry out such an attack.
Yeah, that's exactly right. He knew that this would be his big chance. So he made his preparations. He smuggled dynamite, gunpowder, from a local quarry where he worked. He had some experience as a clockmaker, so he used that in order to build the mechanism which would trigger the bomb. In preparation, he went to his family's secluded orchard. He set up the bomb and tested it. Coming up, after Georg Elser's attack, he flees the scene and heads towards the Swiss border. How far does he get? The story continues after the news.
And now for this week's News in Brief. In the center of Berlin, a construction site occupied by towering concrete walls is slowly turning into the recreation of a 15th century palace. However, the €600 million project to rebuild the palace of the Hohenzollern royal family, which was destroyed during the war, has come under fire for its vague concept. What is clear is that this new Stadtschloss would house cultural and historic exhibitions under the name of the Humboldt Forum. But what exactly would the space be used for? And what would justify such a huge investment? But there's some good news for this museum and its future visitors. Neil McGregor, who was the director of the British Museum for 12 years, will be making the move to Berlin to help with the Humboldt Forum. He will be working with and advising the German cultural minister, Monika Guters, on her ideas to see the museum to completion. Aviation giant Lufthansa has stated that it did not withhold crucial health information on the co-pilot Andreas L., who recently intentionally crashed an airplane belonging to its subsidiary, Germanwings. Doctors at Lufthansa reportedly recommended that he receive psychological treatment while suffering from depression. Returning to flight training in 2009, he told his instructors that he had overcome severe depression. Lufthansa stated this week that they were not required to inform aviation authorities about his health issues or depression because he was a qualified pilot. No rules were broken, but Lufthansa said that new regulations have now been brought to safeguard against these types of pre-existing conditions from causing problems in the future. And that's this week's News in Brief. If you'd like a quick and simple way to keep up with the latest from Germany, sign up for our weekly email newsletter, which you can find on our website, thisweekingermany.de. He got the bomb in place. He left the city. But where could he go?
Well, as soon as he'd set the bomb in place and started the timer, he escaped. He left the city and headed for the border with Switzerland. It might seem a little strange at first, but he was carrying on him a postcard of the Bürgerbräukeller and bomb-making paraphernalia, meaning he wanted to be identified.
That was for the purpose to show in Switzerland, yes, I'm the man who made this assassination attempt.
So with these items, he could show that he was instrumental in stopping the war and then ask for asylum in Switzerland.
And it has a second purpose. If someone in Germany was accused to make this assassination attempt, Elser could say from outside, no, this was not this man or this woman, I made this assassination attempt. No one should suffer with false accusation.
So we got to the border of Switzerland. Did he make it through? Did he get away with it?
No. When he got to the border, he was arrested by customs police and put into prison. Of course, from the possessions he had on him, they could work out that he was the person who had planted the bomb. His wife, back in Königsbronn, was also arrested, and Georg was transported to Munich and eventually Berlin for cruel, torturous interrogation. But why did they interrogate him when they already had evidence that he was the person who committed the plot? Professor Tuchel from the German Resistance Memorial Center explains.
The Nazis say there is not the possibility that a simple carpenter could make an assassination attempt against our beloved Führer's life. And the Nazi propaganda said Elser is only a part of a conspiracy. He worked for the British Secret Service. Nonsense. He made sketches of the pillar, he made sketches of the explosive machine, and he built a reconstruction of the explosive machine for the Gestapo.
So he drew up his plans, he reconstructed the bomb and the mechanism, and his interrogators were able to see that he really could build such a device on his own.
I'm sure this type of crime carried the death sentence. After he confessed, was he executed right away?
No, not at first. Georg Elser was kept alive for several years.
Why?
Well, the Nazis had planned to be victorious, of course, in the war, and they decided that once they were victorious, they would put the heads of the Secret Intelligence Service in Britain on trial, and Georg Elser would be their human evidence for this trial. As bombs started falling near the Dachau concentration camp where he was imprisoned, they realized the war was lost, and they wouldn't need to keep their prisoner alive, after all.
The Nazis lost the war, so Adolf Hitler ordered on April 5, 1945, the execution of Elser, what took place 4 days later in the Dachau concentration camp.
His murderers were ordered to report the death of Elser as an accident. He was shot and immediately cremated. How is Georg Elser remembered today?
It was a long way to give a good memory for Georg Elser in Germany. In the Nazi time, a lot of people believed in the Nazi propaganda. Elser was an instrument of the British Secret Service. On the other hand, a lot of people say it's unbelievable. Why had Hitler left for 13 minutes? The Nazis did this for themselves. It needed a long time, up to the year 1969, when the interrogation records of Elser were found by the Munich historian Lothar Gruchmann. From that moment on, all people could know that Elser was acting for himself by his own decision, that he wanted to end the war. But it needed a long time in Germany. The old rumors, the old stereotypes are still working.
As the professor explained, the story of the assassination attempt and the reasons behind it has changed over the years since the Second World War. And that brings us to today. This week, a new film was released to commemorate the 70th anniversary of Georg Elser's murder on the 9th of April, 1945. The film is titled Hätte die Welt verändert, or He Could Have Changed the World. In English, it will be released later this year under the title 13 Minutes. The director of the film is Oliver Hirschbiegel, and he explains why the story was so important to him.
Back then he was suspected of being a stooge of the British intelligence agency. They thought the bomb was too well constructed to be something he could have made on his own. The other rumor was that he was working for the Nazis to prove that Hitler couldn't be killed.
This is the guy that directed Downfall, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Remember the clip of Elser placing the dynamite and setting the clock mechanism from the beginning of this report? That's a clip from this film.
Then the script landed on my desk with new information about him, telling and showing his story in a different way. I couldn't do anything else except say, I have to make it. I didn't even plan to film anything around that time, but the story was so fascinating that I had to.
Dass ich das machen musste. Zum letzten Mal, wer sind Ihre Hintermänner?
Gut, dann sage ich es halt. Der Churchill hat mich angerufen und gesagt, Elser, bau eine Bombe und jag den Hitler für mich in die Luft. Wir alleine schaffen das nicht. Ich kann nicht sagen, was es nicht gibt. Ich muss leider zu meiner Schande
I have to admit to my shame that I hadn't heard of Georg Elser before I read the book.
nichts gehört habe.
That's the actor who plays Georg Elser in the film, Christian Friedel.
And when I read the book, I was fascinated by the story, the courage he shows.
Und der Mut, die Courage.
Then I realized that it's important that this film is made in order to bring him into the collective consciousness.
Bewusstsein zu bringen.
And you know what? Christian's right. It's cultural artifacts such as films and books and exhibitions which keep people who do courageous acts alive in our collective consciousness. During my visit to the German Resistance Memorial Centre, Professor Tuchel showed me around a part of the museum dedicated to the memory of Georg Elser.
So, yeah, if you could just talk for a couple of minutes just about what's here, what we can see.
Okay. We are now at the permanent exhibition of the German Resistance Memorial Center. This is room number 7, and it deals with Georg Elser and the assassination attempt.
One criticism many people bring up is, why didn't more Germans resist the dictatorship? But of course, on the other hand, it was extremely difficult to speak up or act against the Nazi regime when facing the threat of brutal punishment and even execution. But this should bring us even more to respect and remember those who did stand up. The final word goes to Professor Tuchel. He believes that the fact Elsa wasn't successful isn't the most significant point. Here's what's important. One man had the courage to resist the Nazi regime and was 13 minutes away from single-handedly changing history.
What he made is so important for the German history because Elser is an example what a man could see, what a man can make his own decision and how he can act against tyranny.
Next up, Sven Rudloff is back to give us an insight into how Germany works. This time, Aldi, Lidl and the continuing industry dominance of the German discount supermarkets.
Hello, my name is Sven, and every month I give you some insights on what it means to be German, with interesting stories about typical German things and the German psyche. Today I want to talk about a particular German success story. How two brothers created a completely new kind of retail business that conquered the world and the purses of all cost-conscious consumers. The discount store. If you ask Germans about the Aldi stores, they will tell you that you can buy there cheap but with reasonably good quality, and maybe that Aldi's reclusive owners are the richest people in Germany. They may, however, not necessarily know that Aldi is also the largest retailer in the world, and that they in fact invented the discount category as we know it. It was 1913 when Karl Albrecht Senior and his wife Anna opened a small store in a suburb of Essen. At the time, and for many decades to come, such family-run shops provided their neighborhoods with food, household goods, simple textiles, and everything else essential for everyday life. The shops also stocked goods that were easy to store, but actually came from far abroad. This led to this category often also be called colonial goods stores. Dry goods were usually not prepackaged, but sold by weight and packaged in store. The relationship between the shop owners and their customers was very personal. Regulars could buy on credit, and the owners took special orders and often did home deliveries too. Especially after the Second World War, such stores became colloquially known as Aunt Emma shops. In 1945, the two sons of the Albrecht family, named Karl Jr. and Theo, took over their parents' business and started expanding. Within 15 years, the brothers owned more than 300 stores across Western Germany. But the time of the small Aunt Emma shops came to an end with the rise of supermarkets. Large self-service stores with a wide selection of products and brands. The Albrecht brothers also experimented with the supermarket concept, but even their larger stores were too small to compete. Today, a German store has to be at least 400 square meters in size to be called a supermarket. The experimental Albrecht supermarkets were only half that size. Eventually, the Albrecht brothers had a new idea. Could our smaller stores compete with the larger supermarkets on price if we get rid of all unnecessary costs? So, what are ways to reduce costs? Significantly cut the number of products you offer, and offer only one product per category. Ideally, agree with the supplier of a good quality product that their product will be the only one in this particular category sold in your shop. In return for this exclusivity and the large quantities they can sell this way, you get a very good purchase price. At the same time, require that the product is not sold under its original brand, but under a no-name store brand. This way, you can still switch suppliers in the background if you want to, and the supplier doesn't dilute its own brand by offering their product in a discount store. More ways to cut costs is to only offer products that sell quickly, so-called fast-moving consumer goods or FMCGs, and to avoid fresh products that can spoil easily, or that require specialists to sell, like fresh meat or fish. Cut down on personnel and train the cashiers to do all necessary tasks like restocking shelves by themselves. Do not offer special services, discounts, or buying on credit to customers. And finally, avoid costly store interiors, decorations, and marketing campaigns. As a result, even with an attractive margin for the store owners, consumers can enjoy low prices as if they got a permanent discount. This is why this retail concept is known as the discount store. In 1961, the Albrecht brothers started to run with this concept and called their newly organized stores Aldi, short for Albrecht Discount. They expanded quicker than any other retailer ever. The turnover per employee in the new Aldi stores was 10 times that of their previous ventures. Because customers could only pay cash, but the brothers had agreed a 30-day time for payment with their suppliers, they always had enough cash in hand to invest in new stores without the need to take out bank credits. Today, Aldi has more than 4,000 stores in Germany, another 4,000 in the rest of Europe, and about 1,500 stores in the US and Australia. However, Aldi is in fact not one company, but two. No one knows why, but at the same time they started their success story, Carl and Theo split the existing stores between them and continued more or less separately, but on good terms. Today, Aldi Nord, with a blue logo and white background, operates in northern and eastern Germany, in Denmark, Poland, and the western countries of continental Europe. Aldi Süd, with a light blue logo on dark blue background with an orangey border, operates in southern Germany, Austria, Switzerland, Hungary, and Slovenia, as well as in the UK and in Ireland. The more than 1,300 Aldi stores in the US also belong to Aldi Süd, while Aldi Nord owns the US retail chain Trader Joe's. Even today, Aldi is still owned by the Albrecht family. The two brothers were very reclusive, never gave interviews, and there are hardly any photographs of them. Karl, the elder and owner of Aldi Süd, was the richest man in Germany since the 1970s, with an estimated wealth of more than 18 billion euros at the time of his death last summer. His younger brother Theo, owner of Aldi Nord and the second richest man in Germany, already died in 2010. Theo gained some publicity when he was abducted in 1971 until a ransom of 7 million Deutschmarks was paid. The two kidnappers were caught, but half of the ransom money was never found. Aldi, like all discounters, have always been seen as stores for low-income customers. However, the quality of the Aldi products is solid. Consumer tests regularly praise them, and some of Aldi no-name products can easily compete with well-known brands. So it's no surprise that about 3/4 of the generally cost-conscious German households regularly shop at Aldi. Why buy expensive champagne if you don't want to show off, and you can get a decent cheap one from Aldi? Or from Lidl? Let's not forget that the world's second largest discount store chain is also German. The Lidl company had already existed since 1858, when its owner, Dieter Schwarz, turned it into a discount chain in the 1970s. Today, Lidl has almost 10,000 stores in 26 European countries, and they are just about to enter the US market too. Compared to Aldi, Lidl focuses very much on food. And with 1,600 food products, it offers more than twice that what Aldi carries. Looking back at my 4 How to Be German topics so far, it seems process improvement is a common theme. Be it for producing TV crime movies, setting industrial and educational standards, for making beer, or running shops. Let's see if I can find more aspects to being German next time.
And coming up right now is Destination Germany. We're taking you on a journey somewhere in the country that is well worth a visit. If you enjoyed the destinations that we talk about each week, go to our website, thisweekingermany.de, and we'll have photos of each week's destination.
So, where are we going and what are we doing this week, Rob?
Well, winter is over and it's warming up, so I wanted to talk about something our listeners might be starting to think about: swimming. And more on point, swimming in Berlin at the Spree River.
I don't think this is a good idea, Rob. You know, I live in Berlin, and I can tell you that the Spree River here in the city is not somewhere that's clean enough to go swimming.
Okay, maybe not in the Spree River, but let's say on the Spree River. There's a public swimming pool that is behind the Arena Berlin, and it's actually floating on the river. It's called Badeschiff, or bathing ship.
A floating swimming pool? That sounds really cool. So, does it look like a ship?
Well, not really. On the shore, there's a man-made beach area, so you can have a beach day right there in the nation's capital. Then, walk down a gangplank, and there's a wide open dock area. Here, there are chairs, small tables, umbrellas, even hammocks set up. And at the end of the dock is the pool itself, which is really large and can accommodate quite a few people.
So the weather's kind of cool now, so when can we go swimming?
Well, that's the beauty of it. The pool is heated. It stays at a pretty constant 24 Celsius, that's 75 Fahrenheit, and has just opened up. It opens up to the public in April, and the actual season for swimming starts in May.
So if there are swimming seasons, I would guess that you can get a season pass. So how much does it cost to swim on the Badeschiff with and without season pass?
There are season passes, and you can get one for 95 euros that lasts from May until September. But if you don't want to throw down almost 100 euros on going swimming, then you can get a one-day pass for 5 euros. And if you're a student, it even goes down to 3 euros.
Okay, nice. Anything else you want to tell us about this pool in the middle of a river?
There are lots of swimming halls in Germany. So if you want to go swimming, it's not that difficult to find a place. What makes swimming at Badeschiff different is the unique atmosphere. Visitors can get a panoramic view of the river and the city in the background. Nowhere else can you be doing the backstroke while gazing up at the famous Berlin TV tower. Go to our website, thisweekingermany.de, to see the Badeschiff photos for yourself and get an idea of how cool this place really is.
And that's about it for episode number 67. This Week in Germany is produced by me, Daniel Winter. It is written and presented by myself and Rob Bishop. Thank you to Johannes Tuchel of the German Resistance Memorial Centre for speaking to us about Georg Elser's life. You can listen to the full, unedited interview with him in an episode of Twig Extra on our website. In our report, you heard clips from the film Elser hätte die Welt verändert, which is out now in cinemas in Germany, starring Christian Friedel and directed by Oliver Hirschbiegel. It'll be released later this year in the US and the UK under the title of 13 Minutes. And also a thanks goes to Felix Betzin for the dubbing help.
Music was by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com and Ramesses B from SoundCloud.com/RamessesB. Sound effects by the community of freesound.org, including users Digifish Music, ST303, Leabi Noirlac, You, and Biscuit and Me, and Frito Beck. And also a big thanks to Sven Rudloff for his insight into German consumer culture. You can listen to his hit German language podcast at vivabritannia.de.
Thank you for listening. We'll be back next Monday with more of This Week in Germany.